What's up, everybody? Celtic Scarecrow here back whenever you get those 10s and 20 views. Um, Doing a reaction today because I'm on vacation and I batch record. I'm about to do both this week and next week's anime Saturday morning cartoon reaction to that light is messing up my face. Um, Real Stories of Devils, which would be next week is this week's would be the season finale. We're doing 3 episodes. Yeah, I should have ended it and then start something new going and want to get back on vacation. But yeah, live and learn. Today we're going to be reacting to King Trout, History of Halloween Part 1. I really haven't watched any of King Trout's content. I've seen him on the unsubscribe. Uh, I think I made him. No, I have not made him in XCOM. I might make him in XCOM, but I don't think him and Juicy would be that different of people. But yeah, so he seems funny. He reminds me of what like if YouTube existed in the 90s, what a YouTuber would look like. So let's give him a fair shot. He's talking about something I love, Halloween, spooky season. And get to it. And show reaction. Yeah, new background for when I'm not doing an actual show. Like the show pops up, see? Episode 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm doing that next. Or maybe not. I have football tonight reaction too. But let's get to Mr. Trout. Take it away, good sir.
Halloween.
Hold on. Oh, we get an ad? No. Okay. Put him in.
Halloween. Halloween. It's October, and you know what that means. As boring millennials would
See if my computer, for
put
some
it,
reason.
it's spooky season. The time when
Yes, it's spooky season. Don't judge us.
all the terrifying things, the goblins, the ghouls, the existential dread related to the fact that you'll probably never get married or bear children, come to mind. Unless
Sir, I feel slightly attacked. Please go on.
you're watching this when it's not October, in which case, pretend. What is Halloween? Where did it come from? And who cares?
Ireland and the Celts and poor people and me.
Some of these questions and less answered in today's video when we discuss the history of Halloween. I'm King Trout, and despite what the divorce proceedings would have you believe, I'm a good man, and I will get custody of the kids, you stupid bitch. Our story begins 2,000 years.
Well, I already trust him. He's wearing a bandana, and I can trust guys with bandanas. Hold on. We'll go Trout mode. Here we go. There. In honor of King Trout.
A few moments later.
Yeah, I just put up a few moments later. I fought with this thing for far too long. In honor of King Trout, we'll rock the bandana. No, solidarity.
Years ago, on an island to the left of England, known for its hatred of Margaret Thatcher, alcoholism, and a gambling game wherein you start your car. Ireland. At this point in time, the British Isles, as well as Ireland, were occupied by a group of people called the Celts. The Celts
See? Celt, aka the Celtic Scarecrow.
were a group of people who would later change the pronunciation to Celts, move to Boston, Massachusetts, and become a shitty NBA team. They followed a
That happened when they came to America.
calendar which divided the year in half the months being months of light, and half the months being months of dark. On the day that their calendar transitioned from these months of light to months of dark, they celebrated a festival which they called Samhain, this day being October 31st. Samhain was primarily a harvest festival, but they also believed that on this day, the veil between our earthly world and the spiritual other world was at its thinnest. The Celtic other world was the home to spirits, some good and some not so good. You can kind of almost think of it as like the Catholic purgatory. Or if you're a nerd, like the lands between from Elden Ring. They
Also, I always say, like, one of the reasons why I believe that there's God, the Celts and the ancient, not ancient, I guess it would be ancient like Mexicans, Aztecs. The holidays of Day of Muertos, Day of the Dead, and Samhain mirror each other just in yin and yang forms. I wonder if
Celebrated
Chuck's
this
going to bring that up.
festival by creating giant communal bonfires, which they would gather around, and everyone would take part of the bonfire home to light their hearths for the winter. They would also offer sacrifices to the spirits, sometimes food or animals or maybe people. Maybe people. No, there's some evidence there might have been people that they sacrificed, but we can't be sure. But maybe people.
More than likely.
Another thing they did, since the spirits could make their way from the other world into ours, and you didn't want to get got by a spooky spirit or a goblin ghoul, is you would dress up so as to confuse the spirits. They may have magical powers and the ability to move from one realm into another, but change your clothes and I have no idea who you are. They continued this until the year 46 AD, when
Sir, what happened to your bandana? Way to change your clothes.
for some reason Julius Caesar decided he wanted to conquer Britain. If I have to re-record this clip one more time, I'm going to quit making
These mushrooms make you feel
Oh, that is a perfect time for a commercial because he was getting ready to say something stupid. But yeah, all that's basically true. That's 100% true with everything he said. Also, the Catholics hijacked it.
YouTube videos. So the Romans showed up, and according to every source I read or watched on this topic, the Romans were very accepting of others' religions. Unless you count Christianity, they were crucifying Christians, or they were tying their penises closed and force-feeding them water until their bladders exploded. But no, contemporary historians are like, no, they were very accepting of other cultures' religions. Sure. Well, we won. Regardless, the Romans had a festival they called Feralia, which was celebrated in February. The Romans were obsessed with lost spirits who hadn't...
Romans liked the party, and the Celts, they could party. That's really the answer. They weren't accepting other religions. The Romans went, you hate the British? Yes. You're partying? Yes. Cool, we're friends now.
Found their way to the underworld. In this Roman festival, they worshipped the goddess Pomona, who was the goddess of fertility and a bountiful harvest. They saw how similar their festival of Feralia was to the Celtic Samhain and kind of mushed them together. Apples were a symbol of the goddess, and a method of divination in ancient Rome, or to tell the future, was to fill a barrel full of water and then put apples in it so they float to the top and try and grab them with your teeth. Listen, I didn't look into it, so I don't know how you tell the future by doing that, but bobbing for apples is an ancient Roman method of divination. And now you can't walk away from this video and be like, I didn't learn anything, because
Why does I feel like King Trout does the same style of research I do, which is a general Google search and then go to a different website and make sure it says the same thing?
if you're telling me that you knew that bobbing for apples was an ancient Roman method of divination, you're full of shit. You're a liar. You're a liar, because no one knew that. No one knows that. I learned that, and I still don't even understand how. It's gross. You're dunking your head in a cesspit full of other people's spit to attempt to grab an apple. How does that predict the future? How does that predict the fucking future? I digress. So the Romans and the Celts have blended their ideologies together. Fast forward a couple hundred centuries, because nothing very important happened, but now the Catholic Church has its eyes on the British Isles. So the Catholic Church, with the intention of...
Oh, boo. Yeah, for some reason my computer, I got like basic Dell computer, doesn't like certain things.
converting those living on the British Isles, saw that it was in their best interest to let the local celebrations continue to exist, but with a new Christian flair. The
Same thing with Valentine's Day, Christmas, yeah, Halloween.
church realized that in order to convert these pagans, they had to allow for some of their more hard-set traditions to continue to exist, but with a little bit of a Christian twist on them. Now, I know 25 seconds ago I just talked shit about the Romans, claiming they didn't do the same thing. But as a Catholic, my religion is correct.
Oh, see, I remember most Catholics are Roman Catholic.
The church had a method of integrating others' traditions into Christianity. Now, the understanding was that they would have a festival or a set of traditions that had a general theme, in this case, the divide between life and death, and there would be a new wraparound theme involving Christendom. This was the same technique the Catholic Church used to turn the pagan tradition of Yuletide into modern day Christmas. The church had a holy day in March, which they called All Hallows Day, to celebrate venerated saints. Hallow meaning a holy person. In the 9th century, churches on the British Isles began to celebrate All Hallows Day, or as it later came to be known, All Saints' Day, on November 1st. November 1st being the official day for All Saints' Day was extended to the entirety of the Catholic Church by Pope Gregory IV during his papacy. The day after All Saints' Day.
Why does it? One, he's actually all accurate, which is hilarious because everything I see him on Unsubscribe, he's more unhinged. But why does he feel like he's like being tortured to make this video? like, it's like I'm waiting for like the fat electrician to pop up and like, no, you say it right. Like what I'm half expecting, or Eli, he's like, cut, all right, try it again.
November 2nd was declared All Souls Day, a day to pray for anyone whose soul was lost in purgatory. All Souls Day having that common theme with Samhain, where you're essentially praying for souls trapped somewhere between life and death. So we have All Souls Day on November the 2nd, All Saints Day or All Hallows Day on November the 1st. The day before, October 31st, was called All Hallows Eve, or for short, Hallows Eve, or for even shorter, Hallow Eve, or for even shorter than that, Halloween. In much the same way you would.
I think that part of it more or less turned. It's not as much of like the shortening, but different abbreviations of something. Like Will of the Wisp has an O instead of an F for some reason. Just that could just be different spellings from different locations.
Say New Year's Eve. It's the evening before New Year's. New Year's Eve. Yeah, shorten it up. Except it was All Hallows evening, the evening before All Hallows Day. And then Een is just another way of shortening evening.
Like I said, I think it was how people pronounce things because they had weird accents over there. They still do.
That's why in the original spellings of Halloween, there's an apostrophe between the E's. The more you know. As time went on, most of these traditions kind of continued. They just lost touch with their pagan roots. For example, instead of dressing up as spirits, instead, mostly children would dress up as venerated saints. Like, I went to Catholic school when I was a kid, and on All Saints Day back in like 2004, I dressed up as St. Patrick. Here, I'll put up a picture of it.
Why does he make me feel old? Like, was this in high school? This better have been in high school.
If I can find one.
Yeah, no, everything he's saying is more or less correct. He is leaving out a lot of details, though, which it still has.
During that period of a few hundred years that I glossed over so casually just a moment ago, the Celts were pushed back from the entirety of the island of Britain to primarily Ireland and what is now modern-day Scotland by the Anglo-Saxons. Now, in traditional King Trout fashion, I will gloss over hundreds of years of British history because they had a civil war like every 10 minutes over there from the year 600 until the year 1700, and I don't care. I'm just using this as a vehicle to get the story to the important part when it goes to America.
Yeah, okay. Celtic's version of extreme history. Yeah, at some point, the British, England tried to invade Scotland, got their ass whooped, and then realized that those crazy bastards, we don't need them down here, so they built Hadrian's Wall. And then Ireland just kind of went full Ireland. His joke about the cars earlier never stopped. Except for a small part of Ireland, which actually did accept England, which is Northern Ireland. But yeah, I'll point out any other jokes, like reason why. Like, you left out candy for the spirits, hence why people give out candy. that's like a big thing. A lot of the poor people would actually go around door to door and knock to get food and stuff for the winter. So all they dressed up.
That being said, the Anglo-Saxons were originally Catholic, then they converted to Protestantism, there was a civil war, blah, 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 blah. Then a guy came along, Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes and some of his buddies wanted England to return to Catholicism. Based. Excuse me. So he had an idea. He was going to blow up Parliament.
False. 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 Guy Fawkes was, yes, a part of the group. It was not his idea. He was a scapegoat. Hence the phrase, a penny for the scapegoat.
Now, if you'll give me just one moment.
Yeah, Guy Fawkes was not the mastermind. He was the guy who got caught.
Do you advise that I condone religious extremism or domestic terrorism? No. Damn. Okay, just wanted to check. Thank you.
Yeah, he lives in the unscribe house, so the lawyer that unscribe uses normally pops in every so often.
My attorney has advised me you should not do that. But, womp womp, bad news, he failed. As a result, he was hung and then drawn and quartered. The British celebrate this failed...
Oh, yeah, they tortured him. Like, go watch Epic Rap Battles History. They tell you a lot about that.
terrorist attack for some reason by wearing masks in the visage of Guy Fawkes, burning effigies of him, and starting bonfires. This celebration occurs on November the 5th.
Yeah, that bonfires are hijacked from All Hallows, the Festival of Samhain.
Now, I am obligated to roll the clip from V for Vendetta.
On my way here, and
Yes.
Oh, wait, no, not that one. The other one.
Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
So now the English also have a festival where they wear costumes and light things on fire, at almost exactly the same time as the Irish and Scottish do. Now, the traditions of All Hallows Eve continued to grow in Scotland and Ireland up until about the 1840s, when a little thing called the potato famine occurred, and the British kind of incidentally genocided a million people. But about...
Also sold a ton of Irish and Scottish into slavery, but that gets glossed over as well.
20% of the population of Ireland fled to the United States. And oh, thank God, we finally made it to the part of the story that I care about, the part that takes place in America. All Hallows Eve had basically not been celebrated pretty much at all in the United States prior to the arrival of these Irish and Scottish immigrants, mainly because the population of America was almost entirely Protestant, and they really hated anything that was considered too Catholic. Man, one of the lights on my set has been off for like...
Oh, yeah, no, you figure half the original settlers were Protestants that were kicked out for being too stingy, like strict with religion. Yeah, how stuck up do you got to be that the British kick you out? That's the Protestants back then.
Like half of these clips. I'm gonna figure this out one day. I swear. I'm gonna figure out how to do this YouTube thing one day.
Same.
Not today, but one day. The Irish and Scottish immigrants brought this tradition with them to the States, to which the Americans responded by going, "Oh man, that looks fun. I want to wear costumes and have a party."
Unless you're in Salem, Massachusetts.
American children in particular took to the idea of dressing up in costumes, running around and having fun. Now, since most Americans, as I mentioned previously, at the time weren't Catholic, it kind of became a more secular thing. Having lost its religious roots, what eventually became modern-day Halloween started in America as what was called Mischief Night. On October 31st, children would dress up in costumes and wreak havoc. It was like the Purge, but for kids. They would run around, break...
Yeah, I still never got into that. I feel like the mindless destruction. I did TV once, but that's fun destruction. Like, oh god, no, there's toilet paper in my trees. Thanks for decorating my house for me. Like, I literally had a guy, like, my friends were like, we were just joking around, and we had stuff. He goes, you guys doing mischief night stuff? Like, he goes, TP these trees here and here, because they'll help make my Halloween costume decorations look better. I'm like, deal.
breaking windows, destroying things, opening up gates on pastures to let all the animals out, to the point where in some places they didn't even call it mischief night, they called it gate night, because the kids would open up the gates and they would pull other miscellaneous pranks.
I missed.
Now, one story that kept coming up over and over again while I was researching this was the story of, I think it was in New York, kids disassembled a cart and then rebuilt it on the roof of a barn, which is, all right, I'll give you credit for that. That's actually kind of funny. Eventually, it got so bad that organizations like the Boy Scouts started hosting parades and other little bullshit to keep the kids distracted so they wouldn't absolutely demolish a town with their chaos. During this same period in time, a woman by the name of Doris Hudson Moss wrote an article for American Home magazine wherein she told the women of America, hey, I figured something out. If you offer these little hoodlums treats, they don't destroy your house. She had invented a form of bribery wherein she gave treats to the children to keep them from pulling tricks.
Partially true. She found the actual history of Halloween where they would give out, they would have treats on the porch for demons to take so they wouldn't terrorize them. It was a treat instead of a trick. She saw that and went, I bet they'll work with human kids too.
Can you see where this is going?
He's also skimming over Jack of the Lantern, which is a great story, which I think I watched a video on last year, where basically a guy named Stingy Jack tricked the devil twice. So the devil chopped off his head and made him immortal. And he was banished from heaven and hell.
The phrase trick or treat, as adorable as it sounds, is a very thinly veiled threat. The concept wasn't entirely new, though. There was a tradition called souling, which took place on All Saints' Day in Europe, wherein impoverished families would go from house to house and be offered little cakes called soul cakes in exchange for prayers and songs. And there are plenty of traditions from all around the world wherein primarily children will go from home to home and they'll exchange like a song or something for, a little treat. But trick-or-treating had a uniquely American twist on it. Give me candy or I'll destroy your house and kill your livestock. This tradition began to spread across the country because Americans found it the better option to the child purge I described earlier.
Also, I think all this kind of took place in New Jersey, PA, and New York.
In addition to trick-or-treating, many American schools and youth centers around the country began to hold costume creating contests and pumpkin carving contests so as to channel these children's destructive, chaotic energy into something productive and fun. These traditions continued to spread and grow across the country in the early 20th century until the post-World War II economic boom. America was doing great economically, and it didn't take long for companies to realize, hey, we can sell costumes and candy to people, make this a whole thing. In this post-war economic boom time of cookie-cutter houses in suburbia with white picket fences, nothing quite hit our American heartstrings more than sending our children dressed as goblins and ghouls from house to house to collect.
Also, go look up the old school costumes. They are terrifying. They are haunting.
Candy. The first Halloween celebrated by a president in the White House was Eisenhower, fittingly enough. Halloween continued to grow and grow until it became what it is today, the most quintessentially American holiday, an amalgamation of multiple different cultures' beliefs mushed together into one thing that we celebrate by buying cheap Chinese shit and corporatizing a religious festival. America. Currently, Halloween is a multi-billion-dollar industry each year, and nearly 1/4 of all candy sold in the United States of America annually is sold at Halloween. Where will Halloween go from here? I don't know, it's definitely not going anywhere. Like I just said a second ago, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Baby, it ain't going nowhere. From its humble beginnings as a Celtic pagan festival celebrating the harvest, to its current standing as a Spirit Halloween pop-up store appearing in an abandoned Target near your home, that's been the history
That did not Target here, but they have stolen over a few things.
of Halloween. Stay tuned for part 2 when I break down the origins behind all of the goblins and ghouls and spirits and monsters that we associate with the holiday. I've been King Trout, and as always, thank you for watching.
Not a bad video. Maybe not my cup of tea to do a reaction on again, but not a bad thing. Yeah, but he left out a bunch of things. He left out with at least the history of Halloween. Like I said during the video, people would leave out treats for demons so they wouldn't get tricked throughout it. Stingy Jack, the guy who tricked asked the devil for a favor, and like he convinced the devil to go up a tree, put a cross on it so the devil couldn't get down. And then another time he asked the devil to change into a coin, tricked him twice, got kicked out of heaven and hell, lost his head, so he has to take a jack lantern with the coal, ever burning coal, put in lantern, so he's Jack of the Lantern. That's where that whole comes from. The When the Irish actually came to America, we were sent down to Mexico to fight in the Spanish American War, I think, or the Mexican American War. And there's a comedian who jokes about it, but it's like the Deus Muerte and Halloween, they looked at each other and like. So yeah, there's a lot. I'll take a very simplified version of Halloween. It's not a bad one. And if you're just looking for like base information, that was perfect. Feel free to deep dive everything else, but that is it. That is all I have. I'll see you weird people later. Excuse me.